The first night I saw the lantern, I thought it was a trick of the fog. It was close to midnight, the air cold enough that every breath looked like smoke. I'd been sitting in my car at the edge of the old Willowmere Cemetery, engine off, watching the moonlight slide over the rows of tombstones. I used to come there when I couldn't sleep. Don't ask me why. Some people listen to rain sounds or ocean waves. I liked the quiet hum of the graveyard. It was always empty still, peaceful in a way that made the rest of the world feel far away. But that night the peace felt wrong. I saw a flicker near the caretaker's shed, a small yellow glow moving between the graves. The cemetery had been abandoned for years. The caretaker's house was boarded up, the roof half caved in. There wasn't supposed to be anyone here. Still, there it was, a lantern swinging gently. At first I thought it might be kids, maybe someone trying to make a ghost video for TikTok. But the way it moved didn't look like someone holding it. It glided smooth, purposeful. I told myself it was nothing. I rolled down the window to listen, no footsteps, no voices. Just wind through the trees. But then I heard it. The squeak. It was faint, like metal hinges turning. A slow rhythmic sound moving closer. Squeak. Pause. Squeak. The lantern light floated toward the central mausoleum, bobbing slightly. I could see more now. The faint outline of a man, or maybe just a shadow, hunched and slow. I blinked and the light went out. Just gone. That should have been my cue to leave. But I didn't. Something about it hooked into me. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself it was nothing. Maybe I was just tired and curious in a way that overrides good sense. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the car. The gravel crunched under my shoes. Too loud in the silence. My breath fogged in front of me. Every headstone seemed to lean toward me as I passed, their names half swallowed by moss. The air had that strange cemetery smell, wet earth, metal, and old flowers. I walked toward where I'd seen the lantern last. Nothing moved. The caretaker's shed sat at the far edge of the lot, a squat wooden thing with a broken padlock dangling from the door. When I shined my flashlight through the gap, dust swirled like smoke. Tools, rakes, a cracked shovel. No sign of light, then the air shifted. Cold, so suddenly it felt alive, crawling under my jacket. Behind me, from somewhere in the dark, came a single crunch of footsteps on gravel. I turned fast, flashlight beam slicing the night. Nothing, just rows and rows of graves, silent and still. I started walking back toward the car, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. That's when I saw it again, farther away this time, near the big oak in the center of the yard. The lantern, only now it wasn't moving. It was just hanging there, like someone invisible was holding it out for me to see. I froze. The light wasn't warm anymore. It looked colder, flickering white around the edges. It pulsed once, brighter, and then dimmed, and I swear I heard something whisper. Not a word I could make out, just breath and vibration, like someone trying to talk through water. That's when I ran. I sprinted across the path, shoes sliding in the dirt, flashlight beam jerking wildly. I didn't look back until I slammed the car door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking too much to put the key in the ignition. When I finally started the car, the headlights hit the cemetery gates, and the lantern was standing right there, in the middle of the road, swaying slightly. No one holding it, just standing there, light still burning. Then it blinked out. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself it was nothing. I even looked up Willowmere's history the next morning. Turns out the caretaker, a man named Harold Keene, died on the job in 1979. Heart attack. Found right by the oak tree, the same one I saw the light near. People online said they'd seen his lantern too, that it showed up whenever someone lingered too long after dark. I laughed it off, told myself I wasn't that superstitious. But still, something in me needed to know more, so I went back. 2 nights later, same time. This time, I brought my camera. The fog was thicker, rolling in waves across the ground. My flashlight barely cut through it. Everything felt muffled, like the air itself was listening. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Just the creak of the trees and the distant hum of the highway. Then right when I started to think it was a waste of time, my camera light flickered. Battery. Full. Still flickering. The fog thickened near the caretaker's shed until I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. I heard something dragging. Soft, slow, like boots through gravel. Then the light. Same spot. near the oak, but this time it didn't move at all, just hovered there, steady. I lifted my camera, zooming in, trying to keep the shot clear through the mist. My breath came out in short, white bursts. There was a shape beside it, not a full person, just the outline of one. Shoulders, maybe a head, but wrong. Too still. Hello? I called out, instantly regretting it. My voice came out shaky, small. The lantern flared, bright, blinding, and I dropped the camera. The light went out and everything went dark. Then from behind me a whisper, "Don't be here after midnight." I spun around so fast I fell, hitting my shoulder against a gravestone. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Leave." It wasn't angry. It sounded almost tired. I scrambled up and ran, not even caring about the camera. I didn't stop until I was back at my car, gasping for air, hands numb from the cold. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the lantern one last time, glowing faintly between the graves. And beside it, just barely visible, something standing still, watching. I didn't go back for weeks. But then the dream started. Every night, I'd see that light. Sometimes outside my window, sometimes hovering at the foot of my bed, always swaying, always there. When I woke up, I'd smell damp earth and rust like I'd been sleeping underground. After the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself I needed to finish what I started, to prove it wasn't real. So I went back one last time. It was raining, the kind of rain that soaks through your clothes in seconds. The sky was pitch black. The cemetery gate creaked open with a sound like a scream. I walked straight to the oak, flashlight trembling in my hand. The ground was soft and sinking. I could see the patch where the lantern always appeared. The grass worn down to mud. There was something there this time, a small rusted lantern, real, not floating, half buried. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected, still damp inside like it had been burning minutes ago. My fingers came away black with soot and then footsteps. "Behind me! Slow, deliberate, Mr. Keene?" I whispered, not sure why I said it, no answer. Just the squeak. That same sound from before, hinges turning, metal dragging. The light flickered on by itself. My hand wasn't even near the wick. It just lit up, pale blue, cold instead of warm, and in the glow I saw him. He wasn't standing. He was hanging from the oak tree, a rope around his neck, body swaying slightly in the rain. Eyes open, milky white, his face was calm, almost peaceful. I stumbled back, but my feet slipped in the mud. The lantern's light flickered over the graves, and suddenly, I realized something. I wasn't standing on just mud. I was standing on a grave that looked freshly disturbed. The headstone read, Harold Keene, 1928-1979, and just beneath his name, carved faintly into the stone, a new line, and the one who found him. My stomach dropped, because someone had carved that recently. And the ground, it wasn't settled. It was breathing, rising, falling, like something beneath the surface was moving. I ran. I didn't look back. When I reached the gate, I heard it, metal scraping against stone. The lantern swinging behind me, that faint squeak echoing through the rain. I didn't stop driving until I was home, soaked and shaking. It's been a month now. I haven't gone back, but the smell of wet earth hasn't left my clothes, no matter how much I wash them. Sometimes when the power flickers at night, I see a soft yellow glow outside my window. Not bright enough to be a streetlight. Not close enough to be a car, just there, swaying, waiting. And last night, I heard it again, the squeak. Slow, rhythmic, coming from inside the hallway. I didn't check. I didn't move. I just lay there, pretending to sleep. But I know what it was. I know who it was, because when I closed my eyes, I saw the faintest flicker of light through my eyelids and a whisper. Soft and close, "Don't be here after midnight," and then, right beside my bed, the sound of a lantern being set gently on the floor. The first time I heard the whisper, I thought it was just wind in the grass. But then it said my name. It was late, close to 1 a.m., and I was standing at the edge of the cemetery, my phone flashlight trembling in my hand, recording a video for my friends. They dared me to spend 5 minutes alone inside Willowmere Graveyard. 5 minutes, $50, my friend Jordan had said, grinning through the car window. And say something spooky to the camera so we know you didn't chicken out. I was 17, bored, and too proud to say no. So of course I said yes. Willowmere sat at the far end of town, surrounded by rusted gates and crooked trees. Everyone knew the stories: the caretaker's lantern, the girl buried alive, the ghost that whispered from Plot 47. But no one actually believed them. It was just the kind of creepy folklore small towns used to entertain themselves. Or at least that's what I thought. The air inside the graveyard felt heavier, like walking into a place that didn't want me. The grass was long and wet, brushing against my jeans. My flashlight beam shook over the stones, some cracked, some leaning, most covered in moss so thick you could barely read the names. I hit record. "Okay, it's 1:04 a.m., I whispered into the camera. "I'm officially in Willowmere Cemetery. 5 minutes starts now." I turned the camera to the rows of graves. "Pretty sure I'm not supposed to be here, so if I get arrested, Jordan, you're paying my bail." The joke fell flat even to my own ears. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet. Like the world had hit pause. I walked along the path, counting headstones, trying not to look directly at them. When my light hit the number markers near the ground, small metal plates with faded paint, I noticed one that stood out. 47, Plot 47. Of course, the stories always started there. Kids said it was the grave that talked back. I crouched down and shined my light on the stone. It was old, the name worn away except for a few carved letters. ELLA. The rest was chipped off. A short first name, maybe a girl. A weird chill crawled up my spine. I told myself it was the cold, but when I breathed out, I could actually see the fog of it drifting toward the grave, like the air was being pulled that way. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I jumped so hard I nearly dropped it. Jordan had texted, "Still alive?" I started to type back, but that's when I heard it. A whisper, faint, close. "Hey," I froze. My heart started pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. I turned the flashlight in a slow circle. Nothing moved. Not the trees, not the grass. But then, again, clearer this time. "Hey, it came from right in front of me. From the ground." "Okay," I said out loud, trying to keep my voice steady. That's not funny." No answer. Just the soft sound of wind through the leaves. I aimed the flashlight at the grave. The dirt looked freshly turned, darker than the others around it. I swear I could see it shift just slightly, like something underneath had breathed. My stomach twisted. I started backing up when my phone buzzed again. "Jordan, dude, stop." "That's creepy. How'd you make the whisper sound?" I froze mid-step. "What whisper sound?" Another text popped up instantly. "In your video." It said your name. I stared at the message, every muscle in my body tight. I hadn't said my name, not once. I hit play on the recording, thumb trembling. At first it was just me talking, my own nervous laugh echoing. Then right after I mentioned the grave, there it was, a voice. A whisper, soft, breathy, and unmistakably real. It said, "Lena." My name. I don't even remember running. I just remember the slam of the gate as I shoved it open, the sudden freedom of being back under the streetlights, and my friends' shocked faces as I stumbled toward the car. Jordan laughed nervously. "Jesus, Lena, what the hell was that? You look like you saw a ghost." I think I did," I said, voice shaking. "Did you edit that sound in?" He frowned. "What?" "No, we were watching it live. That's why we texted you." When I showed them the video, everyone went silent. You could hear it perfectly. My name whispered like someone standing inches from the mic. None of them laughed after that. For a while, I tried to forget it. But weird things started happening after that night. It started small. My phone would glitch when I opened the camera app. The microphone would make faint hissing noises like static whenever I recorded. Then it escalated. One night while I was brushing my teeth, my phone lit up by itself and started playing the graveyard video. The whisper came through the speaker again, but this time it didn't say my name. It said, "Come back." I dropped the phone in the sink. A week later, Jordan messaged me. "You're not gonna believe this. Someone dug up part of the cemetery. Plot 47. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "What do you mean?" He sent a photo, grainy, taken from the street through the gates. In the center of the image, near the same spot where I'd stood, there was a hole, the size of a coffin, the dirt piled high around it. I didn't want to go back. But curiosity doesn't listen to reason, so I did. The next night, I snuck out. It was raining, soft and steady, tapping against my hoodie. I followed the cracked sidewalk to the cemetery and stopped by the gate. The padlock was gone. Someone had broken it. The air inside smelled like mud and something metallic like rust or blood. The grass was flattened near the center, and when I reached plot 47, I saw the hole. It wasn't deep, maybe 2 feet, but definitely dug by hand. Someone had been here recently. I crouched and shined my flashlight inside. The dirt walls were slick from the rain. Something white glinted near the bottom. I leaned closer. It was a small object, maybe bone. No plastic dot-A charm bracelet. Pink and silver. I pulled it out, wiping the mud off. Tiny letters dangled from it. ELLAI, dropped it like it burned. That's when I heard the whisper again. Right behind me. You came back. The light shook in my hand. Who's there? Silence, then faintly through the rain, soft giggling. A child's laugh, high and short. The kind of sound that should feel innocent. But didn't. My light flickered out. The laughter stopped. And in the brief darkness, I swear I felt a cold hand brush against my ankle from inside the hole. I screamed and bolted for the gate, sprinting until my lungs burned. When I reached the street, the light came back on by itself. My phone camera had been recording the whole time, even though I hadn't hit record. When I checked the footage later, the whisper was there again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Underneath the voice was another sound. Digging. After that night, the whisper followed me. It started showing up in recordings, in voice messages, even in the background of FaceTime calls. Sometimes it was my name. Sometimes it was just breathing. But it was always there. Low, close, like someone speaking right against the microphone. I deleted the videos. I reset my phone. Nothing worked. One night I turned off my phone completely and left it across the room. Still, as I tried to sleep, I heard it again. Lena, right beside my ear. I snapped the light on. No one there, but on my nightstand next to my water glass was the charm bracelet, still wet with mud. I told my mom I was having nightmares. I told Jordan I was fine. I wasn't. Every night the whisper came closer. It stopped being a voice on the phone. It started being a voice in the room. Then it changed. It started asking questions. Why did you come back? Do you remember me? Can I come inside? That last one, I didn't answer. But the whisper didn't need permission. The night everything broke, I was home alone. My mom was working late and I'd just come back from track practice. I was too tired to think about ghosts. I took a shower, brushed my teeth, and flopped into bed, ignoring the soft scratching at my window. Probably branches, I told myself. Just wind. But when I turned off the lamp, the room didn't go completely dark. There was a light, a faint bluish glow coming from my phone screen. It had turned itself on. And it was recording. I sat up slowly. Siri, stop recording. No response. The red recording dot blinked steadily at the top of the screen. I picked up the phone and froze. The front camera was open, showing my reflection. But behind me, over my shoulder, there was another shape, small, pale, standing in the corner of my room. My stomach turned to ice. I whipped around, nothing there. When I looked back at the phone, the recording stopped by itself. The screen went black, and in the reflection of the blank glass, I saw words form. Like breath fogging up the inside of the screen. Come back to me, that was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've been hearing the whispers even when I'm not home. At school, on the bus, in the locker room. No one else hears them, but sometimes people stare at me strangely, like they feel something off without knowing why. Jordan tried to make me laugh about it. Maybe Ella just wants her bracelet back, he said. The way he said her name made me feel sick, because I'd never told him the name on the charm. Last night, I decided to end it. I took the bracelet and drove back to Willowmere just before midnight. The gate was wide open this time, creaking slowly in the wind. The fog was thick enough to hide the ground. I found plot 47 by instinct. The hole had been filled in. The dirt was smooth now. No sign of the bracelet or digging. Just a fresh bouquet of dead flowers lying on top. I knelt down, my breath shaking. I'm sorry, I whispered. I shouldn't have come here. I'm leaving this alone, okay? You can rest, no answer. Just silence. Then as I stood to leave, my phone vibrated in my pocket. One new message. From an unknown number, it was a video file. No text. I pressed play. I almost dropped my phone when I saw it. That little figure in the fog, pale dress, small hands, standing right behind me in the video. And she was holding my hand. I stared at the screen, my throat tightening. That wasn't possible. I was alone, the video was still playing. It showed me turning toward the camera like I knew it was filming. And then without sound I mouthed something. 3 words. "Help me, please." I didn't remember saying that. The clip ended with a burst of static. When I lowered the phone, the fog around me had thickened. I couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. The grave markers looked like dark shapes floating in the mist. The air felt heavier now, wet, dense, electric. Something was breathing nearby, I could hear it. Soft and ragged, like someone trying not to be heard. "Who's there?" My voice cracked. "Jordan, if this is you, I swear." But I already knew it wasn't Jordan. The breath came again, closer this time, right by my ear. "Lena." I turned so fast I nearly slipped. My flashlight beam cut through the fog and landed on a small figure standing by the next row of graves. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her hair was tangled, her skin grayish pale, and she wore a white dress soaked from the rain. One arm hung limply at her side. The other clutched something small and silver. The charm bracelet. My throat closed up. I couldn't move. She tilted her head, eyes wide and hollow, not blank exactly, just empty. Like she was looking through me instead of at me. I took a shaky step back. You're Ella?" The little girl blinked slowly, then nodded once. Her mouth moved, but the sound that came out wasn't words, just static like a recording stuck on repeat. "Ella, I'm sorry," I whispered. "I shouldn't have taken your bracelet. I'll put it back, okay? You can rest now." Her head tilted again. The static stopped, then, very softly, "You promised." My stomach dropped. "What?" She pointed at the ground, at the grave. "You said you'd come back." Her voice wasn't whispering anymore. It was in my head, echoing from inside my skull like my own thoughts weren't mine anymore. I stumbled back, shaking. I didn't promise, but then I remembered. That first night when I heard the whisper and ran, I had said it, muttering to myself as I sprinted for the gate. "I'll come back. I swear I'll come back later," and I did. The girl smiled, a small, awful smile that didn't touch her eyes. She lifted her arm and let the bracelet fall to the ground. The moment it hit the dirt, the earth around the grave began to sink. The soil rippled, collapsing inward like something was tunneling beneath it. I turned and ran. I didn't care about my phone, my flashlight, anything. I just ran toward the gate, praying I could still find the path through the fog. The ground was slick, my shoes sinking with each step. Behind me came a sound I'll never forget. A laugh, childish, distant, echoing through the fog. Then, underneath it, the faint scrape of fingernails against wood, like someone knocking from inside a coffin. When I reached the gate, it was closed again. I grabbed the bars and shook hard, but they didn't budge. It was like they'd fused together. I turned around, panting, scanning the fog. "Leave me alone!" I shouted. "You're dead, stay that way!" The fog stirred. The laughter stopped, then I heard it right behind me. I'm not alone. I froze. A hand touched my shoulder. Cold. Small. I screamed and spun around, shoving backward against the gate so hard the metal dug into my back. There was no one there, just my phone lying in the mud at my feet, screen cracked but still on. The camera was open, front-facing, and on the screen, behind me, was the little girl. She was standing inside the gate, her hands pressed flat against the bars, staring straight at me, except she wasn't outside anymore. She was on my side. The next thing I remember is waking up in my bed. Morning light leaking through the blinds, my clothes still damp with mud, my phone lying on the pillow beside me. No fog, no cemetery. Just home. I thought I'd dreamed it. Some kind of breakdown from stress and too many horror stories. But then I checked the phone. There was a new video, recorded at 3:12 a.m. I pressed play. It was me, sleeping. The camera slowly zoomed in on my face, steady and deliberate, like someone was holding it inches above me. In the reflection of my eyes, you could see her standing in the corner of the room, watching. I didn't go to school. I couldn't. I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection until my vision blurred. Every few minutes I heard it, the faint hiss of whispering. Not words this time. Just sound, like someone testing the boundaries of silence. I smashed the phone that afternoon, took it outside, threw it against the pavement until the screen shattered into a web of cracks. But that night, when I plugged in my charger, the cracked phone lit up on its own, The camera opened by itself. The red light blinked. Recording. I moved the next week. My mom thought I was having panic attacks, maybe sleepwalking. She never believed the videos were real. We packed up and left town. New house, new school, new everything. For a few days it worked. The whispers stopped. I started sleeping again. Then one night I heard something from the hallway, a voice. Come outside. It was soft, high-pitched, almost sing-song. When I opened my bedroom door, the house was dark except for the blue glow of my old broken phone lying on the hallway floor. I hadn't brought it. I'd thrown it away before we moved. It was recording again. The camera faced the front door, and through the small window I could see a figure standing on the porch. A little girl, head tilted, bare feet, white dress. She lifted her hand slowly and waved. Then the video ended. I begged my mom to believe me. She said it was grief, anxiety, trauma. Every explanation except the truth. We went to therapy. I deleted every backup, every message, every trace of Willowmere. Still, the whisper found me. Sometimes in the static of the radio, sometimes in the hum of my laptop fan. Once during class it came through the school's PA system for just a second, so faint only I seemed to notice. Plot 47. Everyone else thought it was interference. I knew better. The final straw came last month. I was scrolling through TikTok late at night, trying to distract myself, when a random video popped up on my feed. No username, no caption, just a blurry clip of a cemetery. Willowmere Cemetery. My stomach turned cold. The camera moved slowly between the graves until it stopped on one. Plot 47. The name on the headstone was clearer now. Ella Marin, 1972-1979. And below it, a new line had been carved. Lena Hart, 2006-2024. The year wasn't finished yet. I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't breathe. When I picked it back up, the video was gone. The app had closed itself. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every sound made me flinch. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like footsteps. I started leaving the lights on, but even that didn't help, because the shadows in the corners weren't empty anymore. They moved. 2 nights ago, I decided to face it. Not because I was brave, but because I couldn't live like this anymore. I bought a cheap recorder from the drugstore, left my phone at home, and drove back to Willowmere. The gates were chained now, but someone had cut through the side fence. The air smelled the same, wet dirt, old flowers, rain. Plot 47 was easy to find, even in the dark. The earth had split open again. Half the grave was collapsed inward, like something had clawed its way out. I turned on the recorder. "This is Lena Hart," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm back where it started. If something happens to me, this is proof." The wind rose, carrying faint whispers through the trees. I knelt down beside the grave. The soil pulsed beneath my knees, damp and warm. I set the recorder on the headstone. "Ella," I whispered, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have taken anything. I shouldn't have come here. Please let me go." For a second, nothing. Then faintly, the recorder picked up a voice, a child's voice. "I can't," I froze. "Why not?" "You heard me." "What?" "Now you belong here too," the recorder hissed with static. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't move. The ground had gone soft, sucking at my shoes. I looked down, my feet were sinking. The soil clung to my ankles, pulling me down inch by inch. I screamed and tried to crawl away, but the earth tightened. Gripping like hands, from the hole came laughter, quiet, breathy, endless. Then I saw her. The little girl crawling up through the dirt, eyes glowing faintly white in the dark. Her dress was torn, her mouth full of soil. She reached for me, fingers brushing my leg. I kicked free and ran, stumbling, gasping. The fog closed around me, thick as smoke. I couldn't see the path, couldn't see the gate. Every direction looked the same, then somewhere behind me the voice, soft, calm, final. "See you soon." I woke up in my car, parked outside the cemetery, dawn breaking over the trees. My shoes were caked in mud. The recorder was gone. I told myself it was a nightmare, that I'd fallen asleep, dreamed it all. But when I checked my phone later that morning, there was a new file waiting. No sender, no date. I pressed play. It was the recording from last night, my voice, the whisper, the laughter. And at the end, just before the static cut off, another sound like someone scribbling something into stone. I didn't think much of it until I drove past Willowmere again this morning. The sun was out, the gates locked. Everything looked normal, but when I slowed down by the fence, I saw something carved into the stone column by the entrance. Fresh, jagged letters, Plot 48, and below it, my name, Now I Can't Sleep Again. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that whisper crawling out of the dark. Not through a phone this time. Not through a recording, through the walls, through the air itself. It's like she's inside my house. The first night I slept there, I told myself it would only be once. Just one night. Just until I figured out where to go next. But once you lie down in a graveyard, something happens. The silence sticks to you. The air feels different, thicker, older, like you're breathing through the past. And if you stay long enough, the ground starts to move with you. It had been raining for 2 days when I first found Willowmere Cemetery. I was soaked, hungry, and too tired to care where I ended up. The city shelters were full. My last pair of dry socks were already ruined. I followed the road out of town, past the shuttered shops and the old bus depot, until I saw the iron gates through the fog. They were half open. The lock rusted away years ago. There was a caretaker's shed near the back, but the roof had caved in and the windows were gone. I crawled inside, wrapped myself in my old blanket, and tried to sleep. It wasn't quiet. The rain on the tin roof sounded like 1,000 nails. But it was dry, and that was enough. I slept for 12 hours straight. The next night, I moved outside. The shed stank of mold and rats, and the smell clung to me like oil. I dragged my blanket between 2 headstones under a big oak. The ground there was soft and dry. It almost felt peaceful. I told myself the dead wouldn't care. I wasn't hurting anyone. Still, when I closed my eyes, I could feel them. The names beneath me, the bones, the weight of years pressing up from below. It was like sleeping on someone's memory. That should have bothered me. It didn't. If anything, it felt safe. The third night I started dreaming. Not normal dreams, the kind you wake from and forget. These felt real. In the dream, I was lying in the same spot, blanket pulled to my chest. The air smelled like rain, but everything was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no bugs, no city noise. Then one by one, the headstones around me began to hum. Low at first, just a vibration under the dirt. Then louder, like a whisper, like a voice pressed against the inside of the earth. I couldn't move. Couldn't even breathe. Then the ground under my back shifted just slightly, like something inside it had turned over. I woke up gasping, hands clutching at the blanket. The hum was gone. The cemetery was silent again, but the dirt beside me wasn't smooth anymore. It was sunken, like something underneath had pressed upward in the night. I should have left then, but I didn't, because the truth is, sleeping beside the graves was the first time in months I hadn't felt alone. People in the city don't look at you when you're homeless. You're invisible, a shadow in their day. Out there, surrounded by names carved in stone, I finally felt like I belonged somewhere, even if the ground whispered back. By the 5th night, I'd started talking to them, not out loud at first, just in my head. Good night, whoever you are. Hope you don't mind me here. But the longer I stayed, the more it felt like someone was listening. There was one grave in particular I kept coming back to. The headstone was small and plain, half buried in weeds. The name was faded except for a few letters. M-A-T-T-H, and the rest had cracked off. I called him Matt. I'd lay my blanket near his grave every night. The dirt there stayed warm, even when frost started to bite the air. Sometimes, just before I fell asleep, I'd feel a soft vibration through the ground, almost like a heartbeat. One night I woke up to the sound of footsteps, slow, dragging, moving between the rows of graves. At first I thought it was an animal, but animals don't walk like that. Steady, deliberate, heel then toe, heel then toe. I stayed perfectly still, my breath fogging in the cold air. The footsteps came closer. I could hear the crunch of gravel now, the soft scrape of shoes dragging through wet grass. They stopped a few feet from me. I peeked from under the blanket, nothing, just the empty path between the headstones. Then I saw the lantern. It was hanging from one of the iron hooks near the caretaker's path, a faint yellow glow swaying back and forth. But I knew it hadn't been there before, and I knew there was no one alive left to light it. When I woke again, it was dawn. The lantern was gone, but there was something new near Matt's grave. A fresh patch of dirt. It was small, about the size of a loaf of bread. I brushed some of it away and saw something white underneath. A bone. I froze. I didn't touch it, didn't dig any further. I just sat there staring at the ground until the sun was fully up, pretending it wasn't real. When I finally looked away, I saw something else carved into the side of the headstone. I hadn't noticed it before. 4 new letters, J, a K-E, my name. I tried to convince myself it had always been there, that I just hadn't looked close enough before. But when I ran my fingers over the carving, the grooves were sharp and fresh. Someone or something had written it during the night. That was the first time I tried to leave. I packed up what little I had, blanket, coat, old backpack, and walked toward the gate. The air outside the cemetery felt lighter, cleaner, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood there, one step from freedom, and felt something tug at the back of my coat. It wasn't wind, it was like a small hand holding me there. The feeling faded after a few seconds, but by then my heartbeat had slowed. My breathing had changed, and I realized I didn't want to leave. That night I went back to the same spot. Same blanket, same patch of dirt. The bone was gone now. The ground looked untouched again. But as I settled down, I noticed something strange. The headstones around me were all facing the same direction, except Matt's. His faced me. I told myself I was imagining it. I wrapped the blanket tighter and tried to sleep. That's when the whisper started. It wasn't words at first, just a sound. Low and rhythmic, almost like breathing through the soil. Then, slowly I heard it form syllables. Jake, I sat up, heart pounding. Who's there? No answer. The whisper came again, softer. Don't go. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't listen. I could feel the ground moving, shifting under my palms. The dirt was breathing, and then I heard it again, right behind me this time, as if someone was crouched beside my ear. Stay. The next thing I knew, the sun was rising. I didn't remember falling asleep. My whole body felt heavy, like I'd been buried in sand. When I sat up, there was dirt under my nails and soil smeared across my face, and beside me, on top of Matt's grave, lay my blanket, neatly folded like someone had tucked me in. After that, everything blurred. Days stopped meaning anything. Nights stretched longer. Sometimes I'd wake and it would already be dark again. I started hearing the whispers even when I wasn't lying down. They followed me through the cemetery, murmuring from underfoot, from cracks in the headstones, from the hollow spaces between trees. Don't leave. Stay warm. Rest. They weren't threatening. They were gentle, almost kind, and that's what scared me most. I started digging without knowing why. At first, it was just to keep warm, something to do with my hands. But the more I dug, the more I felt like I was supposed to, like the earth itself was asking me to. I didn't dig deep. Just shallow pits near the graves, little half-dug holes that filled with water when it rained. But one night, as I pushed the shovel into the dirt, I hit something solid. Not stone. Not wood. Skin. Cold, soft, and smooth. I dropped the shovel and stumbled back, gasping. But when I looked again, the hole was empty. The dirt perfectly flat, no sign of anything there. I knelt, touched the soil, dry, undisturbed. My fingers came away clean. That's when I heard it again, almost home. By then I'd stopped questioning things. Hunger, cold, fear, they'd all gone numb. The whispers were the only constant left. Sometimes I could almost make out sentences. You listen. You stay. We remember you. Once I swear I heard laughter, a deep rasping chuckle from beneath the ground, and when I looked down, my shadow stretched wrong across the dirt. It didn't look like me anymore. A week later, the caretaker came. He was a tall man in an orange vest, holding a clipboard and a flashlight. He must have been new. No one had come out there in months. I watched from behind the trees as he walked the rows, muttering to himself. He stopped at Matt's grave, frowning at the disturbed dirt. I don't know what possessed me to speak, but I stepped out and said, "Don't touch that one." He spun around. "Jesus, who the hell are you?" "Just don't," I said. "That one's not yours to fix." He shined the flashlight at my face. "You're trespassing, pal. You can't sleep here. You need to go." His voice sounded wrong, too sharp, too loud, like he was cutting through something fragile. The whisper in my head hissed, "No." Before I could respond, the caretaker's light flickered. He turned, frowning at the lantern post nearby. The old metal hook was swaying. The same one where I'd seen the lantern before. The air went cold. "Who's there?" he called, stepping closer. Then, right behind him, the dirt by Matt's grave started to move. It rose like something exhaling from below. The caretaker didn't notice. I opened my mouth to warn him, but no sound came out. My body locked up like invisible hands were holding me still. The ground cracked open, a thin line of dark soil splitting upward. The caretaker turned just as the lantern light flickered to life above him. Cold and white. "What the?" Then he screamed. The earth swallowed his foot, then his leg. He tried to pull free, but the soil clung to him like water, sucking him down inch by inch. I stumbled forward, reaching out, but the whisper in my head roared, "Stay." My hand froze midair. His flashlight fell, beams spinning wildly through the mist. Then he was gone, dragged under, the ground ceiling shut behind him. Silence. The light of the lantern went out, and I realized I was alone again. Only I wasn't. When the ground sealed over the caretaker, I didn't run. I wanted to. Every sane part of me screamed to run. But my legs wouldn't move. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, like the earth itself had my ankles trapped in its breath. I remember staring at the spot where he disappeared, the soil still trembling, the rain starting to fall again. That's when I realized I wasn't cold anymore. The air around me felt warm, almost gentle. Like the ground was exhaling through my skin. I whispered, barely breathing, "What do you want from me?" The answer came in a chorus. Not one voice, but dozens, men, women, children, layered like wind in the trees. "Stay. Don't leave us again. We remember you." I pressed my hands to my ears, but the whispers were inside my head, echoing through bone instead of air. And under it all, a single voice. Matt's voice, the one I'd heard most often. Low, calm, almost kind. "You're home, Jake." For the first time, I wondered if I'd actually died that night. The first night I slept here. Maybe this was what came after. Maybe I'd been lying to myself, pretending to be alive when I was already under the dirt. I touched my wrist. My pulse was still there. Fast, frantic, but real. That made it worse, because it meant whatever was happening while I was alive. By morning, the caretaker's truck was still parked by the gate. Door open, engine running, headlights dim in the mist. I thought about taking it. Driving until I couldn't see gravestones anymore. But every time I stepped toward it, the air thickened. Like walking through water. At one point, I felt a hand graze the back of my neck, cold, impossibly light. I froze, a whisper right behind my ear. "Don't leave us like he did." When I turned, there was no one. Just the headstones standing like witnesses. The next few nights blurred together. I didn't sleep much. I'd close my eyes for a minute, then jolt awake to sounds, soft tapping on stone, footsteps circling my blanket, the scrape of nails against wood. The graves around me looked different now. Some were lower, others higher, as if the ground had shifted. Once I woke up and found the names on the stones rearranged. Letters in new places, spelling words that hadn't been there before. Lay beside us. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I'd imagined it. But when I looked again, it was still there, carved deep, fresh. A week passed before I saw another living person. A woman, maybe mid-30s, came to lay flowers near the older section. She didn't notice me at first. I must have looked like part of the cemetery. Just another shadow between the stones. But when she did, she jumped back. "Oh my God, you scared me." "Sorry," I said. My voice sounded strange, rusty from disuse. She hesitated, eyes flicking to my blanket and the small fire I'd made. "Do you live here?" I wanted to tell her no, that I was just passing through, that I had somewhere to be. But I couldn't think of anywhere else. "Yeah," I said finally. "Something like that." She shifted, uncomfortable. "Well, I'm visiting my brother. He's over there, Plot 47. Died a few years back." Plot 47. That name hit something inside me. A memory, or maybe just a sound I'd heard whispered before. "Don't go there," I said. Too quickly, too loud. She frowned. "Excuse me?" I looked toward the row she was walking toward. The air above those graves shimmered slightly, like heat rising from asphalt. I could almost hear the whispers again, faint under the wind. "Please," I said, standing. "Just leave the flowers here. He'll still hear you." Her expression changed, confusion first, then pity. "Look, I'm sorry, but you need help. I'll call someone, okay?" She turned back toward her car. The whispers grew louder. "No, don't let her go!" And then the ground near Plot 47 began to sink. Just an inch at first, then more, like the soil was breathing in. "Stop," I shouted. "Don't," but she didn't hear me. The dirt opened under her feet. She screamed once, stumbling forward as the ground caved. I ran, faster than I had in years, but by the time I reached her, only her arm was above the surface, fingers clawing at nothing. I grabbed her wrist. For a second I thought I could pull her out, but the earth pulled harder. Her skin was ice cold, slick like mud. Then her hand slipped away, vanishing beneath the soil. Silence. The hole sealed over, perfectly smooth. I fell to my knees, digging until my hands bled. Nothing, not a trace. The flowers she'd been holding were gone too. Only her scarf remained, half buried beside Matt's grave. That night I didn't light a fire. I just sat there staring at the dirt until my vision blurred. When the whispers came again, I didn't fight them. "You saved her. From leaving. She's one of us now. You understand?" "No," I whispered. "I don't understand any of this." The ground pulsed beneath me. "I knew you will." Then I saw movement right at the edge of the graveyard. A man's figure half shrouded in fog. At first I thought it was the caretaker again, maybe another one sent to check the place. But when the figure stepped closer, I saw its face. My face. Same hair. Same eyes. Same torn jacket. It even moved like me. Head tilted, left arm hanging slightly lower than the right. He didn't speak. He just stood there watching. Then slowly he raised a hand and pointed toward the ground beside me, at Matt's grave. Before I could move, he opened his mouth. Wide. Too wide. And a long, low whisper poured out. "Lie down." I blinked and he was gone. By the next morning, I couldn't find the caretaker's truck anymore. The gate was shut, locked from the outside. I don't remember it ever being locked before. There was no food left in my pack. No water, but I didn't feel hungry or thirsty. All I felt was tired. Bone-deep tired, like I hadn't slept in 100 years. When I tried to stand, my legs gave out. The ground felt soft beneath me, like a mattress made of air and soil. And I heard them again, dozens of voices whispering together. "Rest now. You've earned your place." I closed my eyes. For a moment, I imagined what it would feel like to let go, to sink, to stop running. The earth shifted beneath my back, welcoming. But something inside me fought back. One last flicker of the man I used to be. I forced myself up, dirt falling from my hair, lungs burning. "No," I said out loud, my voice shaking. "Not yet." The whispers hissed, angry now, the sound like wind through teeth. "You belong here. You already stayed too long." And then the ground exploded upward. Hands. So many hands. They burst from the soil, pale and slick, grabbing at my legs, my arms, my coat. I kicked and screamed, clawing at the grass. Their touch wasn't cold anymore. It burned like frostbite turned inside out. "Let me go," I shouted, but the voices just laughed. "You said you were lonely." "We heard you." We made room." They pulled harder. My knees sank. My hips followed. I grabbed for the nearest headstone, fingers digging into the carved letters of math. But the stone cracked in my grip, crumbling like chalk. I was up to my chest now. The soil pressed tight around me, ribs creaking. Dirt filled my mouth, my nose. The last thing I saw before the earth closed over me was the lantern, hanging from the oak branch above, flickering with that same cold white light. Then everything went dark. I don't know how long I was under. There was no air, no heartbeat, no sense of time, just weight and whispers, thousands of them. They didn't sound angry anymore, just tired. "Stay. Sleep. You're one of us now." Then slowly something gave way. The dirt loosened around me. Light seeped through the cracks, soft, yellow, flickering like candle flame. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the ground again. The graves were all around me, the lantern burning gently above, and beside me, someone was sitting cross-legged in the dirt, the man with my face. He smiled, slow and familiar. "Told you it's not so bad," he said. His voice was calm, almost warm. "What are you?" I asked. He tilted his head. "You, or what's left." He reached down and patted the dirt beside him. "Lie back down, Jake. It's easier if you stop fighting." I tried to stand, but my body wouldn't move right. Every limb felt heavy, like it wasn't mine. He leaned closer. His breath smelled like soil and smoke. They always fight. But you stayed longer than most. That's why they like you. Who's they? I whispered. He looked around at the rows of graves, eyes soft with something that almost looked like affection. The ones who never left. The ones who sleep beside you. The ones who keep you company when the world forgets your name. He smiled again. You wanted to belong somewhere. Now you do. I don't remember collapsing, but when I opened my eyes again, I was lying flat on the ground. My double was gone. The lantern still burned, swaying gently. And carved into the headstone beside me were new words. Jake Tanner, 1984, 2025. Traced the letters with a trembling hand. They were fresh, still wet around the edges like the stone itself was bleeding. When I pressed my ear to the ground, I heard it, the heartbeat, slow, steady, and it wasn't mine. It's been quiet since then. I don't eat. I don't sleep. I just sit beside the graves and listen. People still come sometimes, visitors, mourners, the lost. They walk past me without seeing. Some of them stop near plot 47. When they do, I try to warn them. I whisper softly, "Don't stay too long, most don't hear me." But a few turn their heads like they felt a breath on their neck. They always leave flowers. They always come back later. And when they do, there's always another name carved into the stone by morning. Sometimes, when the fog gets thick, I see him again, my double, standing under the oak with the lantern in his hand. He nods at me, and I nod back because now I understand what he was doing, what the whispers meant. The dead don't like to be watched, but they hate being forgotten even more. So we keep them company. We stay beside them. We whisper to the next one, and someday soon. The first time he said it, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the way he said it. Like it was just a fact, like telling me the sky was blue or that graves sink when it rains. He said, "The dead don't like to be watched." Then he looked right at me, eyes dark under his hood, and added, "Especially after midnight." I met him when I started the night shift as a groundskeeper at the old Fairview Memorial Cemetery. The place was huge, overgrown in parts, silent in others. They said it used to have 2 caretakers, but the last guy disappeared sometime in the 90s. They found his truck at the gate, key still in the ignition. Nobody ever found him. That story should have scared me off, but the job paid in cash and I was behind on rent. I told myself all cemeteries had ghost stories, that it was just small-town gossip stretched too far. The man who trained me, Earl, was the kind of guy who didn't waste words. He showed me the equipment shed, the lighting panels, the map of the plots. Told me not to mess with anything near Section H. Bad drainage, he said. Then he gave me one last warning before he left me alone for the night. The dead don't like to be watched. I asked him what that meant. He just said, "You'll see." The first few nights were fine. Quiet, even peaceful. My shift started at 10 and went till 4 a.m. Mostly I just walked the grounds with a flashlight, checking fences and gates. I'd smoke sometimes near the newer graves where the marble still shined. It was cold, but the stillness had a kind of beauty. The air smelled like wet earth and cut grass. Every sound carried far, the crunch of gravel, the rustle of trees. But after about a week, I started noticing things. At first, small stuff. Tools moved in the shed. The door of the chapel opened when I knew I'd locked it. Once, a grave I'd passed dozens of times before suddenly had fresh flowers, though I never saw anyone visit. Then the lights. It started near Section H, the part Earl told me to avoid. Just past midnight, I saw a faint glow between the headstones. Not bright enough to be a phone or flashlight. Just a steady, pale light moving low to the ground. I figured it was kids sneaking in, so I called out. No answer. The light stopped. I took a few steps closer, shining my own flashlight. No one there. Just rows of graves, each one damp and shining under the mist. When I turned to head back, I saw it again. Behind me this time. Same light, same slow movement. That's when I remembered what Earl said. The dead don't like to be watched. The next night, I brought my phone to film it. Half curiosity, half proof. At 12:17 a.m., the light appeared again. Same place, near plot 47. I crouched behind a headstone, recording through the mist. The glow was steady, almost rhythmic, pulsing softly like it had a heartbeat. I zoomed in and froze. There was someone kneeling beside the grave, A man, he wasn't moving, just crouched there, his head tilted as if listening to the ground. My light caught on his face. He didn't blink, didn't react. Then, like a bad reflection, he turned his head exactly the same way I did, perfectly mirrored. I felt my throat close up. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the night. And that's when he smiled. Not big, just enough for me to see the corners of his mouth stretch. I dropped the phone and ran. The next morning, I watched the footage. The light was there, clear as day. But the man wasn't, it was just me. Crouched alone in the dark, moving like I was watching something that wasn't there. And that smile, the one I swore I saw, was mine. I didn't go back that night. I called in sick. Earl didn't answer, but someone else from the office texted saying, "Shift covered. Get well soon." That should have been the end of it. But around midnight my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. I answered, static at first. Then a whisper. "Why'd you stop watching?" I hung up and threw the phone across the room. It buzzed again, skittering across the floor, screen lighting up by itself. The caller ID said, Plot 47. When I went back 2 nights later, Earl was waiting at the gate. He looked worse, eyes red, hands shaking. "You went near H, didn't you?" he said. I didn't answer. He sighed. "You shouldn't have done that. What's in there?" I asked. He took off his cap, rubbing his forehead. "We don't know. Some say it's where the old caretaker's buried. Some say he's still walking the grounds waiting for someone to notice him." "That's bullshit," I said, but my voice cracked. Earl's eyes met mine. "You don't have to believe me. Just remember, when you feel it watching you, don't look back." "Not directly. The dead hate that. They hate being seen." That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I turned off my flashlight, I'd see shapes in the dark, shadows that didn't match the headstones. The air felt charged, like before a storm. Around 1 a.m., I passed Section H again. I didn't mean to. My route just drifted there. The light was back, brighter this time. And this time I heard breathing. I raised my flashlight and the beam hit a man standing just a few feet away, old, maybe 60. Dirty work clothes, lantern in hand. He squinted against my light. "You shouldn't be out here," I froze. "Who are you?" He smiled, a tired, crooked smile. "Caretaker." I almost laughed. "Yeah, me too." He tilted his head. "Not anymore." And then, before I could say anything else, he stepped backward into a grave and vanished, just gone. The lantern stayed where it was, hanging in the air for a second before clattering to the dirt. I ran. When I got back to the shed, the clock said 1:13 a.m., but my watch said 3:42, and outside the window, the same lantern was burning again. I didn't open the door. I just sat there back to the wall watching the light sway through the glass. At some point I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to sunlight and to footprints in the dirt just outside the door. Bare feet, deep impressions, leading toward the shed, and then back out again, like something had stood there all night watching me sleep. I quit that morning. Left the keys on the desk and didn't look back. But even now, weeks later, I still see the light sometimes. Not just in the cemetery, on my street, outside my apartment, reflecting in the glass of my TV when it's off. It's always the same color. That pale, soft glow, like something underground shining up through the cracks, and sometimes when I can't sleep, I hear the whisper, right outside the window. "Don't look at us. We remember your eyes." Last night, I woke up to the sound of dirt falling. Soft at first, then louder. I turned on the light. The ceiling above my bed was fine, but the carpet, right beside me, was moving. Little specks of soil pushing up through the fibers, forming a small mound, and from beneath it, a voice I recognized, Earl's low, hoarse, trembling. "They told me the same thing," he whispered. I didn't listen either. I stared, unable to move. Then another voice joined his, calmer, familiar. "The caretaker. The dead don't like to be watched," he said softly. "But they'll never stop watching you." The lights flickered, and just before they went out, I saw it. The lantern, sitting on my nightstand, burning bright. The first time the angel moved, I thought it was the wind, but there was no wind that night. It was around 2 a.m., and I was sitting on the bench by the old fountain in the cemetery, the one half swallowed by ivy and time. I'd been coming there for weeks, don't ask me why. I told myself it was for the quiet, the stillness, the way the air didn't feel like it belonged to anyone. But really, I think I just liked watching the statue. The stone angel stood at the center of the north garden. Tall gray wings spread wide but cracked down the middle. Her face was half eroded, her hands outstretched like she was begging for something no one ever gave. Everyone in town said she was haunted. Kids dared each other to touch her feet on Halloween. People claimed they saw her weep when it rained. I didn't believe any of that. I just liked how lonely she looked until that night. I'd been sitting there for maybe an hour, smoking the last of my cigarettes when I noticed her shadow. It was stretched across the gravel, long and perfect under the full moon, but it didn't match her. Her wings were still. The shadow's wings were not. They were moving, slowly, like something breathing. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, told myself I was imagining it. But when I looked again, the wings on the ground were still fluttering faintly. The air went cold enough to sting. And then, so quiet I almost missed it, came a sound, stone scraping against stone. I stood up fast, flashlight shaking in my hand. Hello? Nothing. Just the echo of my own voice bouncing off marble and moss. The statue hadn't changed. Still standing tall, face tilted toward the moon. But when I turned to leave, something caught my eye. The bench I'd been sitting on, it had shifted. Just a little, maybe an inch. Enough that the legs scraped grooves in the gravel. My breath froze in my throat because the angel's shadow was now pointing directly at me. I didn't go back for a few nights. Told myself I was done with that place, but curiosity has a way of gnawing through fear. By the fourth night, I was standing at the gate again, flashlight in hand, convincing myself I was just being stupid. The air was thick with fog, and the moon was hidden behind clouds. I could barely see a few feet ahead. When I reached the fountain, I almost turned back until I realized I couldn't see the angel at all. She was gone. At first I thought I'd gotten lost, that maybe I'd taken the wrong path. But no, the cracked fountain was right there, the same bench, the same ivy-covered archway. Only the statue wasn't in her place anymore. There was just an empty pedestal, smooth on top where her feet used to be. I felt my throat close. No, I whispered. No, no, no. The flashlight flickered, then went out completely. And in that split second of darkness, I heard it again. Stone on stone. Closer this time, behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because something in me already knew she was standing there. I felt the weight of her presence, heavy, ancient, cold. Like a wall of air pressing against my back. The silence stretched so long it started to hum. Then, right by my ear, I heard the faintest whisper. Don't look at me. I ran. Branches tore at my coat as I stumbled through the fog. I didn't stop until I hit the gate, slamming against the cold iron bars. When I finally looked back, the fog had thinned just enough to see the garden again. The angel was back on her pedestal, but her head had turned. Now she was facing the gate. Facing me. After that, it followed me. Not literally, not at first, but I'd see her shadow in places it shouldn't be. In puddles on the sidewalk, on my bedroom wall when there was no light source. Even on my phone screen, reflected faintly when I turned it off. Her wings always moving. I started covering mirrors. I stopped going out after dark. Didn't matter. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd feel that same presence, cold, patient, waiting just out of sight, and always that whisper. Don't look at me. Last week, I tried to tell someone, a woman at the bar sitting 2 stools down. I don't even remember what made me talk to her. Maybe it was the way she kept staring at her drink like she was afraid to see her own reflection. I said, "You ever feel like something's watching you?" She glanced up. Her eyes were red, tired. Then she said quietly, "Stone Angel?" My blood went cold. "You've seen her?" She nodded. "Everyone does once. If you look too long, she finds you." I wanted to ask how to stop it, how to make it go away. But she just looked past me toward the bar mirror. Her face went pale. "Don't move," she whispered. I turned anyway, and there she was, behind me, reflected in the glass. The angel, wings spread wide, eyes hollow, one hand reaching forward like she was about to touch my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing there. But when I looked back, the mirror was cracked. That was 3 days ago. Since then, every reflective surface in my apartment has broken. Windows, mirrors, even the TV, all shattered from the inside like something pushed through. The only thing left untouched is the small silver locket my mother gave me. The one with a tiny photo inside. I tried not to look at it, tried to forget it existed, but tonight I felt something move in the dark. A draft, a whisper. Don't look at me. I picked up the locket anyway. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open it. Inside, the picture was gone. In its place was a reflection, dim, warped, but unmistakable. The angel, leaning close. The lights flickered. My room grew colder, the kind of cold that burns your lungs when you breathe. And from the hallway came the sound I'd prayed never to hear again, stone, scraping across the floor, slow, heavy, getting closer. I turned off the lamp, pressed my back against the wall. The scraping stopped right outside my door. Then came a soft knock, 3 times, and the whisper, so close it felt like it came from inside my chest. You looked at me. The doorknob turned. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up at dawn lying on the floor. The room was empty. The door still closed, but sunlight was streaming in through a new crack in the wall, thin and deep, running from floor to ceiling like something had pressed against it from the other side. I went to the cemetery today, just to be sure. The fountain's still there, the ivy's thicker, and the stone angel. She's back on her pedestal, only now she's smiling, and carved into the base, fresh and shallow, are 3 words. I saw you. The first time I hit him, I thought he was a deer. The fog was that thick, like the air had turned to milk. My headlights caught nothing but white. 1 second the road was empty. The next there was a shape right in front of me, small, pale, and human. I slammed the brakes and heard the thud. Soft, sickening, like a bag of wet clothes. I remember my hands shaking on the wheel, my mouth open but no sound coming out. Then I was out of the car, running to the front bumper, screaming, oh my God, are you okay? But there was no one there, no boy, no blood. Just tire tracks in the mud and fog so heavy I could barely see the hood of my car. I stood there, heart pounding, breath clouding in front of me. The night was silent except for the faint hum of the engine. No crickets, no wind. Then I heard crying, a soft, broken sob coming from somewhere ahead in the fog. Hey, I called, voice shaking. Are you hurt? The crying stopped. For a second, everything was so quiet it felt wrong, like the world had been muted. Then, from farther off, the sobbing started again. I followed it. The gravel crunched under my boots as I stepped off the road and into the fog. The sound of my footsteps felt loud, too loud. The mist swallowed everything, turning the trees into gray ghosts. The crying grew clearer, closer. It was a boy's voice, maybe 8 or 9 years old. When I got near, I could make out a shape kneeling in the dirt, small shoulders shaking. I slowed down, raising my hands like you would for a scared animal. Hey. It's okay, I didn't mean to. He turned his head and I froze. His face was pale, almost colorless, like paper left out in the rain. His eyes were gray, too. Not the kind of gray you see in people, but the kind you see in smoke. He didn't blink. I took a step back. Hey, are you okay? He didn't answer. He just looked at me. Then he smiled. I don't know why, but that smile terrified me more than anything. It wasn't evil. It wasn't angry. It was just wrong. Too calm, like he already knew something I didn't. The fog swirled between us. I blinked and he was gone. Just gone. I spun around, scanning the trees, the ditch, the road, nothing. Hello? My voice cracked. Where did you go? The silence pressed in again. I could feel my pulse in my throat. That's when I noticed the ground. There were no footprints. Not his. On mine, just smooth, wet earth. I ran back to the car. My hands fumbled the keys twice before the engine finally caught. I drove the rest of the way home, doing 40 under the limit, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. When I pulled into my driveway, it was 12:47 a.m. The fog had followed me all the way from the highway. It hung in the air like smoke, thick and heavy. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that faint crying again, and I could still see his face. That pale skin, those gray eyes, that smile. The next morning I went back to the spot. I told myself it was just to make sure, that maybe the kid was real and he needed help. But the road was empty. No marks, no blood, no skid on the asphalt. It was like it never happened. Except for one thing. On the shoulder of the road, just where I'd stopped the night before, there was a small pile of stones. Not random, stacked carefully one on top of another. About a foot high, I don't know why. But seeing that made my stomach twist. Something about it felt deliberate, like a grave. That night I dreamed of fog. Endless, suffocating fog, and somewhere inside it the boy's voice, whispering something I couldn't understand. When I woke up, my sheets were damp. My car keys were gone from the nightstand. I found them outside, sitting on the hood of my car, wet, cold. There was a single fingerprint on the driver's side window, small, smudged, like a child's. I tried to shake it off. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, stress, maybe even guilt over hitting an animal. But deep down I knew that wasn't it. 3 nights later I was driving the same stretch of road again. Same time, same fog. I didn't mean to. It was just the fastest way home from the late shift. Halfway through, my radio cut out. Static filled the car, sharp and loud. Then underneath the static, I heard something. A voice. "Why did you leave me?" I slammed the radio off. My throat felt dry, my palms slick on the steering wheel. "Not again," I whispered. But the static didn't stop. The radio wasn't even on anymore. And through the fog ahead, I saw movement, a small silhouette standing in the road. This time, I didn't stop. I swerved around it, heart hammering, barely keeping control. I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror, just long enough to see his face again. Pale and still, eyes locked on me. He was smiling again. Only now, his mouth was open, too wide. And I could swear, even over the roar of the engine. I heard him whisper something. "You left me here. When I got home..." I sat in the car for a long time trying to breathe. The fog was gone now. But my driveway looked different. Someone had drawn in the dirt beside my car. A circle. And inside it, 3 letters, D-A-V. I didn't understand at first. Then I remembered something. My name is David. For the next few days, things started happening inside my house, small at first. Doors cracking open, floorboards creaking at night. Then worse. The bathroom mirror would fog up while I was brushing my teeth, even when the water was cold. And on the glass, a single handprint would appear. Always small. Always on the bottom edge, like a child pressing from the other side. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps in the hallway. Bare feet, slow and uneven. Once I found muddy footprints leading from the front door to the foot of my bed. They stopped right there. The scariest part wasn't the sound, or the fog, or the fingerprints. It was what started showing up in my dreams. In one, I was standing on that same foggy road. The car lights dim behind me. The boy was standing ahead, just out of reach. He was pointing at something on the ground. When I looked down, I saw a grave marker. The name carved into it wasn't mine. But the date of birth was, the year, the month, the day, and below it, in smaller letters, he found his way home. I woke up gasping, the sound of rain hitting the windows. The clock said 3:47 a.m., and then I heard it again. The crying. Outside my window this time. Soft. Muffled, like someone was standing just beyond the glass. I got out of bed, feet cold against the floor, and walked toward the sound. My room was dark except for the streetlight bleeding through the curtains. When I pulled them back, the world outside was white. The fog had returned, and standing at the edge of my driveway was the boy. Same clothes, same pale skin. Except this time his eyes weren't gray. They were mine. I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. My breath came in sharp gasps. When I looked again, he was gone, but something was written on the window, traced in condensation from the inside. 4 words. "I'm coming inside now." I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in the corner of my room until the sun came up, every muscle in my body stiff with fear. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that maybe I was dreaming. That stress could make people see things, right? But when morning came and I went to lock the front door, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The latch was broken, and on the welcome mat, wet footprints, small, bare, leading inside. I didn't call the police. I should have. But what would I even say? Hi, there's a ghost child breaking into my house. Instead, I sat on the couch until sunrise, staring at those tiny footprints. The mud was drying now, turning the carpet brown in uneven shapes. I followed them slowly, heart hammering. They led from the front door, through the hallway, into my bedroom and stopped beside my bed, the same place as before. But this time something new was there. A small white rock. Round, smooth, damp, the kind of stone you'd find marking a grave. That was the morning I realized he wasn't haunting the road anymore. He was haunting me. The fog didn't stay outside after that. It started seeping through my vents at night, filling the corners of my living room, hanging low, like smoke from a candle that never went out. Sometimes I'd wake up and see my breath. Sometimes I'd smell wet dirt and leaves like the woods after rain. But the worst was the crying, always the crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just sad, constant, like he couldn't stop and always so close. Sometimes I'd whisper, "What do you want?" And every time I'd hear the same faint answer, "To come home." I tried to find out who he was. I went through old local records, newspaper archives, anything about accidents on that road. That's when I found it. An article from 1997. Headline, "Boy, killed in fog crash and driver never found." I read it over and over. The boy's name was Daniel Harper. The crash happened at the same curve where I hit him. The article mentioned something else too, something that made my stomach twist. The driver's car was found abandoned 2 miles away. Door open, engine off, keys in the ignition, just like I'd left mine that first night. I went to the address listed in the paper. The house was still there, a small white place with chipped paint and overgrown grass. A woman answered the door. Late 50s, eyes tired, voice soft. When I said I wanted to ask about her son, she didn't seem surprised. She just nodded and let me in. Her living room was full of old photos. A boy with bright eyes, smiling at a birthday cake, holding a toy truck, sitting on a swing. All of them were Daniel, except one. In the corner of a frame behind him was someone else, a boy that looked exactly like me. I asked her about it. She stared at the picture for a long time. Then she said quietly, "You lived next door back then. You and Daniel played together every day." My throat went dry. "That's not possible," she smiled sadly. "You moved away right after the accident. Your parents never told you?" "I know," I stammered. "I don't remember any of this." She nodded like she expected that. "Daniel loved the fog," she said. "He used to say it made the world feel smaller, safer." Her voice broke. "That night he went to meet you. He said you were going to show him something on the road. But you never showed up." I couldn't breathe, I whispered. I hit him. She just looked at me, and in that moment, I saw something behind her. Through the window, out in the fog, a small silhouette, watching. I left without saying goodbye. When I got to my car, the fog had thickened again. There on the hood were 2 small handprints, and written above them, in the condensation, "You remember now." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, turning that photo over in my hands. Me and Daniel, side by side. The date on the back, October 23rd, 1997. Exactly 28 years ago tonight. Around midnight, the lights flickered. The fog returned, spilling in through the gaps in the windows, the vents under the doors. It filled the air like something alive. The crying started again. Closer now, I stood up, whispering, "Daniel, I'm sorry." The crying stopped, and a voice, soft, steady, answered from the hallway. "Then come back with me." He stepped out of the fog. Same pale skin, same gray eyes. But this time he looked almost peaceful. "I didn't mean to leave you," I said. "I didn't know." He tilted his head. "You promised you'd meet me. You said you'd wait." "I'm sorry," I whispered again. He smiled. "It's okay. You can come now." He held out his hand. The air grew colder. The lights dimmed until only the fog glowed faintly. When I didn't move, his smile faltered. "Please," he said. "It's lonely." I took a step forward, then another. His hand was inches from mine, and that's when I saw it, behind him, through the fog. A second version of him, smaller, still crying, and behind that one, another, and another. Dozens of them, all with the same face. The same gray eyes, all whispering, "Come home, come home, come home." I stumbled back, choking on the fog. "No, no, no!" The house started to groan, walls creaking like something heavy was pressing in from all sides. The windows went white. The floorboards trembled. "David," his voice echoed deeper now. Not a boy's voice anymore. "You left me here." The fog surged forward. I fell backward into the hallway, coughing, clawing for the front door. It wouldn't open. Through the glass, I could see the yard, rows of shapes forming in the mist. Graves fresh, dozens of them, each one with a small, smooth stone on top. I turned to run upstairs, but something caught my ankle. Cold fingers. I kicked free and scrambled to my bedroom, slamming the door. The fog seeped through the cracks anyway. My reflection in the mirror started to change. My eyes faded to gray. My skin paled. I backed away, whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." The reflection smiled, and from behind the mirror, faint and distant, came his voice again. "Neither did I." Everything went white. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The sun was shining. The fog was gone. For a few seconds, I thought maybe it was over. Then I saw the footprints again, not muddy this time, dusty, dry, leading from my bed to the front door. I followed them outside. The road was clear, the air still, but on the shoulder, right where I'd first seen him, was a new pile of stones, and on top of it, my car keys. I called in sick. I told myself I'd move, start over somewhere else. But when I packed my things, I found something wedged in the pocket of my jacket. A photo, me and Daniel, standing on that foggy road smiling. Only this time, someone had scratched something new into the bottom corner. He came home. That night, the fog rolled in again. I didn't try to fight it. I sat by the window and waited. And when I saw him standing there, small, still pale, I opened the door. He didn't smile this time. He just took my hand. The air turned cold, and the world went gray. As we walked into the fog together, I realized the sound I'd been hearing all along. The crying wasn't him, it was me. The first time it happened, I thought it was grief playing tricks on me. I'd been leaving flowers on my husband's grave every Sunday for nearly a year. Always white lilies, his favorite. They'd usually wilt by the next weekend. Petals soft and brown, stems bent and dry. But that morning, when I walked through the cemetery gates, I saw them. Perfect, fresh. Dew still glistening on the petals like I'd just placed them there an hour ago. Except I hadn't. I stood there for a long time, staring down at the grave. His name carved into the stone. Michael James Rourke, 1987-2023. My husband, my best friend. The one person who never believed in anything supernatural, who used to laugh at ghost stories and talk to the dead like they were old neighbors. "Guess you were wrong," I whispered, half smiling through the ache. "You're doing something from the other side, huh?" The air felt colder when I said that. I told myself maybe the groundskeeper replaced them. Maybe they had some rule about keeping things looking nice. But when I asked the next week, the caretaker, a quiet man named Arnold, shook his head. "No, ma'am," he said. "We don't touch personal offerings. Not unless the family asks." I told him about the flowers. He frowned. "You sure they're the same ones?" I tied a small white ribbon around the stems, I said. "It's still there." "Same spot." Arnold looked uneasy. He scratched his chin and muttered, "That section gets strange sometimes. Maybe the soil's got something in it." Then he smiled, forced and nervous. "You have a good day now." That was the last real conversation we had. The next Sunday, I found a note, folded carefully, tucked beneath the vase. It was written in my husband's handwriting, "Stop leaving flowers at night." The ink was shaky, faint, like it had been written with a trembling hand. I dropped the note like it burned me. My heart was pounding. That was impossible. I looked around, scanning the quiet rows of graves, the shadow of the trees. The air smelled damp, like rain that hadn't fallen yet. The cemetery was empty. But when I knelt down again, there was something new beside the vase. Another lily, still wet. Still fresh, and the ribbon? Untied. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow looked like it might move if I stared too long. I kept thinking about the note, about his handwriting. How could I forget something so familiar? The way he looped the L in his name, the way his letters always leaned slightly left. I dug through the drawer where I'd kept his old journals, comparing them to the note. Same pen pressure. Same curves. It was him. It had to be. But what did he mean by stop leaving flowers at night? I hadn't told anyone this, but I'd started going after dark. It felt easier somehow. No eyes on me, no pitying looks. Just the quiet hum of crickets and the soft crunch of gravel under my shoes. I'd sit there, sometimes for an hour, talking to him like he was sitting across from me. Telling him about work, the cat, the empty side of the bed that never got cold anymore. It was stupid, but it made me feel close to him. Until the note. Now, every sound at night felt heavier. Every reflection looked slightly wrong, like someone or something was watching. The following Friday, I went again. I told myself it was to prove I wasn't afraid. The sky was dark, no moon. The cemetery gates creaked as I pushed them open. My flashlight beam trembled slightly as I walked. When I reached Michael's grave, the lilies were already there. Fresh. Perfect. Dew shining under the light. I hadn't brought any. There was another note. You shouldn't be here now. The paper was damp, cold, like it had just been placed. Michael, I whispered. My voice sounded small. If this is you, the flashlight flickered. Somewhere behind me, I heard soft footsteps, slow, dragging. I turned, heart racing. The path was empty. Then I heard something else, breathing, just beyond the trees, low, steady. Too close. I backed away, nearly tripping over the headstone. The flashlight went out completely. The dark felt alive, like it was pressing against me from all sides. Arnold? I called out. Is that you? No answer. Only the faint rustle of something moving through the grass. Closer now. Then, barely above a whisper, I heard it. My husband's voice. You never listened. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Michael? The voice came again, this time right beside me. Don't stay after dark. Something brushed my shoulder. Cold. When I turned, no one was there. But the flowers in the vase were gone. All that remained was a pile of petals. Fresh, soft, and scattered across the grave like snow. I ran. Didn't look back until I was home with the door locked and all the lights on. My reflection in the window looked pale and wrong. Behind me, in the glass, I swore I saw someone standing outside, a figure, tall, still, head tilted slightly, holding a bunch of white lilies. I stopped going for a while. A month passed, maybe more. But the flowers didn't stop. Every Sunday morning there they'd be. Fresh, perfect, tied with a new ribbon. I tried ignoring them, but one morning I noticed something different. There were two vases now. The new one was placed a little closer to the foot of the grave, and carved into the stone beneath Michael's name was a faint line that hadn't been there before for Emma on 989, my name. My birth year, the dash waiting for the rest. I lost it. Drove straight to the caretaker's office, demanded to see Arnold. The woman behind the desk looked confused. Arnold? There hasn't been anyone here by that name in years. I told her I'd just spoken to him. She shook her head. No, ma'am. He passed away. Heart attack. He's buried here, actually. She pointed out the window toward the northern lot, and I saw it. His grave. 3 rows behind my husband's, fresh lilies on top. That night, I burned the notes, watched the edges curl and blacken in the sink. Told myself it was over, but fire doesn't stop what's already inside you, because when I woke up this morning, the air in my bedroom smelled like lilies. There was a vase on my nightstand, fresh flowers, perfect, and tucked beneath them, a new note. The paper was wet with dew, the ink still drying. It's time to stop visiting. I'll come to you now. The light in the room dimmed. The air went cold, sharp enough to sting. I could hear something outside, the sound of gravel shifting under slow, careful steps. Then faintly, a man's voice. I told you not to come at night. I turned toward the window. Through the glass, barely visible in the fog, was a figure holding a lantern. He wasn't breathing, and beside him, something smaller, a second figure, holding a bunch of white lilies. The petals didn't move in the breeze, they never do. The bell started ringing again last week. No wind, no service, just that hollow, trembling sound echoing over the graves at midnight. It's supposed to ring only when someone dies. That's how it's always been at St. Nara's churchyard. When I was a kid, I used to count the tolls from my bedroom window, one for each new grave that would appear the next morning. But there haven't been any funerals here in months. And still, the bell rings. I've been the night caretaker for St. Nara's for 6 years now. It's quiet work, lonely sometimes, but peaceful. The church sits at the edge of a small town, surrounded by forest and fog that clings to the ground like a blanket. My job's simple: lock the gates, check the grounds, make sure no one sneaks in after dark. But lately, the nights don't feel the same. The fog's been thicker, heavier. It doesn't move like normal fog. It swirls in slow, deliberate shapes, like it's thinking. And every night at exactly 12:13 a.m., the bell starts ringing. The first night it happened, I thought maybe someone broke in. I grabbed my flashlight and ran toward the bell tower. The sound was louder there, metallic and raw, like something heavy striking the inside of my chest. But when I climbed up the stairs, the rope was still tied in place. The bell was swinging on its own. Not violently, just enough to make that slow, steady toll. Gong, gong, gong. Each ring echoed out across the graveyard, then faded into the fog. I remember whispering, "Who's there?" Even though I already knew I'd get no answer. And for a few seconds, I thought I saw someone down below, a figure standing among the headstones, still, watching. But when I blinked, it was gone. The next morning I told Father Grant about it. He laughed it off, said it was probably wind or loose hinges. But when I asked him to come out that night, he hesitated. Finally, he said, "You know the old story, don't you?" I told him I didn't. He looked toward the graveyard, eyes distant. "They say the bell rings when the buried wake." I laughed, but he didn't. "Don't stay too long after it starts," he said. "And whatever you do, don't answer it." That night, I couldn't help myself. I wanted to see it again, so I waited. When the clock hit 12:13, the first toll echoed through the fog. I didn't move. The air felt thick, charged. Gong. I turned off my flashlight and watched the graves. Gong. The ground trembled faintly beneath my boots. Gong. And then, from the far end of the churchyard, I saw movement, shape shifting in the mist. Slow, uneven, like someone or something was climbing out of the earth. I froze. My breath fogged in the air. The shapes grew clearer, human but wrong. Limbs bent at odd angles, faces pale as wax. They weren't walking. They were swaying, moving in time with the bell. Every toll made them jolt slightly, as if pulled by invisible strings. And when the bell finally stopped, they did too. For a long moment, they just stood there in the silence. Then, one by one, they turned toward me. I ran. Didn't even look where I was going. Just sprinted across the gravel path toward the church. The door slammed behind me, echoing in the empty nave. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break my ribs. Outside, the fog pressed against the stained glass, shifting shapes like it wanted in. Then 3 sharp clangs, the bell again, but this time, it wasn't coming from the tower, it was coming from inside the church. I spun around, flashlight beam shaking. The sound was coming from the altar, and there, laid neatly across the front, was the handbell we use for funerals. Didn't remember taking it out, but it was ringing, slowly, softly, by itself. I took a step back. The doors groaned, and then I heard it, footsteps, wet, heavy, coming down the aisle. "Hello?" I called out. My voice cracked, no answer. Just the footsteps, growing louder, closer. I backed toward the altar, my flashlight flickering. That's when I saw her, a woman, dressed in a faded black gown, skin gray and cracked like old stone. Her eyes were sunken, lips dry, but she was smiling. In her hand, she held a small rusted bell, the same one from the churchyard legend. "The bell rings for the dead," she whispered, "and they listen when it calls." I stumbled backward, hit the wall, dropped the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the church. I could hear her breathing now, slow, steady, then silence. For a second I thought she was gone, until I felt cold fingers brush my face. "You shouldn't have watched," she murmured. "Now you've been named." When I woke up, I was lying in the aisle, sunlight pouring through the windows. The bell wasn't there anymore. Everything looked normal, clean, quiet, still. I convinced myself it had been a nightmare until I stepped outside. Because the ground in front of the church, soft, damp earth, was freshly turned. A new grave. No headstone yet, just a small wooden cross. And tied to it, a silver tag that read Elias Ward, caretaker. My name. I tried to quit that day, packed my things, told Father Grant I couldn't stay. But when I went to the church to hand him the keys, it was empty. The office, the rectory, everything. No sign of him. On the desk, a note: "When the bell tolls 9 nights, the dead reclaim what's theirs." Tonight is the 9th night. The fog's already creeping in through the trees. I can hear the first distant toll. Gong, I want to run. But my body feels heavy. Each ring sinks deeper into my chest, like it's calling something buried inside me. Gong. The air smells like soil. Gong. I can hear movement outside. Hands brushing against stone. Dirt shifting. Gong. The bell isn't ringing above me anymore. It's ringing beneath the floorboards. I can't stop shaking. My flashlight's dying. I can hear whispering now, hundreds of voices murmuring in the fog. Somewhere, faintly, I hear Father Grant's voice. "You should have left when it started." The walls are vibrating with each toll now. The ground's cracking beneath my feet. Gong. I drop to my knees, clutching my ears. The sound doesn't stop. It's inside my head, filling every breath. Gong, 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 then silence. I look up. The fog's gone. The church is quiet again. For a moment, I think it's over, until I notice the rope hanging down from the tower. It's swinging, slowly, and tied around it. Like a noose is my key ring. One of the tags reads, "For the next caretaker." It started as a volunteer thing. I thought keeping grave records for the local historical society would help me get out of my own head. Something quiet. Something harmless. Every Thursday, I'd walk to the old church archive near the edge of town. The place smelled like mildew and dust and paper that had forgotten sunlight. My job was simple: type handwritten death records into a spreadsheet. Birth dates, death dates, grave numbers, boring, right? At least it was at first, until I found my name. It was late, close to midnight. The others had gone home hours ago, leaving me alone with the hum of the old overhead lights and the faint ticking of the clock near the filing cabinet. I'd gotten into a rhythm, flipping through yellowed pages, reading the names of people who'd been gone for centuries. But then I opened a new ledger, the kind bound in cracked leather. The ink faded to brown, and halfway down the page, I froze. The handwriting was small and careful. Daniel H. Mercer, B. 1993, D. 2025. Section E, Plot 14. That's me. My full name, my birth year, and the death year this year. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Some old relative. Maybe someone who just happened to share my name. But when I checked the record index, my address was listed too. Exactly right. I laughed at first, an awkward, shaky sound that didn't really feel like me. Must be a prank, I said out loud, just to hear a voice in the room. But the only reply was the faint creak of the floorboards. I told my supervisor the next morning. She frowned, glanced at the entry, and said, "That's strange. Probably a mistake. Some of these records were transcribed from earlier ledgers. Maybe someone misread a note." She smiled, but her eyes didn't match. "Just skip that page," she said. "We'll look into it later." But I couldn't skip it. Because that night, I dreamt about it, about the grave, Section E, Plot 14, a stone with my name on it, and the sound of dirt being shoveled onto wood. The next day, I drove to the cemetery. I told myself I just needed to see for myself that it wasn't real. Section E was near the back, past the churchyard, down a gravel path lined with dying trees. Plot 14 was there. Fresh earth. No headstone yet. Just a wooden marker with a tag attached to it. I knelt down to look. The tag was blank, but when I turned it over, there was writing on the back, "Reserved." My stomach dropped. That night I couldn't focus on anything. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept checking the mirror, half expecting to see something off, some shadow behind me that wasn't supposed to be there. I tried to rationalize it. Someone could have been messing with me, maybe a sick joke. But I hadn't told anyone where I was volunteering, and no one else had access to that ledger. At least, not anymore, because when I went back to check, it was gone. I searched every shelf, every drawer, every archive box. The ledger wasn't there, but on the desk where I'd been working, someone had left a single sheet of paper, fresh ink. My handwriting. It was an entry form, same format as the records I'd been typing. Name, Daniel H. Mercer. Date of death, October 24th, 2025. Grave, Section E. Plot 14 recorded by DM, my initials. I didn't write it. I swear I didn't. But the pen was still sitting beside it. I left the archive that night without locking the door. I couldn't stay in there another second. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of the floor, the whisper of wind under the eaves, the faint ringing in my ears that wouldn't stop. I drove straight home and drank until I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, my phone had a new voicemail, no number, just silence for about 10 seconds. Then a man's voice. Soft, calm, familiar. You shouldn't have gone to Section E. Click. I didn't go to work that week, didn't answer calls, didn't tell anyone what happened. But the next Thursday, curiosity or something darker pulled me back. When I unlocked the archive door, the smell hit me first, damp, sweet, like wet soil. And the light inside was different, dim, yellow, almost like candlelight. Someone had left the ledger open on the desk, not the new one, the old one, the page with my name. Only this time, the ink looked wet, fresh, and below the entry, another line had been added. Buried October 24th, 2025, recorded by the keeper. I grabbed my phone and took a picture. But when I checked the screen, it was black, like the camera refused to see it. Then I noticed something else. Footprints. Muddy ones leading from the doorway to where I stood. There were more on the other side of the desk, and then I realized there were two sets, one leading in, one leading out. I turned to leave, but something moved in the corner, a man, standing in the shadows near the back shelves. His clothes were old, torn in places. His face pale, almost translucent in the dim light. I said, "Who's there?" He didn't answer. He just tilted his head and whispered, "It's my job to keep the records." His voice sounded wrong, like it was coming from far away. "I didn't write that entry," I said. He smiled. "Everyone says that at first." He stepped closer, the sound of dirt crunching under his shoes. I backed up until I hit the desk. "What do you want?" I asked. "To make it official," he said. "The record isn't complete until it's signed." He handed me a pen. Cold metal. Heavy. I shook my head. "No." He stared at me with those pale, glassy eyes. Then he said quietly, "You already did." He pointed at the page, and when I looked down, my signature was already there. The lights flickered. When they came back, he was gone. The room was empty, but the footprints were deeper now, darker, like something had soaked through them from below. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that I was hallucinating, that maybe I'd been inhaling mold or dust or something toxic. But when I got home that night, I found something on my doorstep. A small white envelope. Inside was a slip of paper. Funeral service. Friday, October 24th, 2025, St. Nara's Cemetery, Section E. My name was printed at the top. That's tomorrow. I've tried to throw it away, burn it, shred it. It just keeps showing up again on the counter, in my jacket pocket, even under my pillow this morning. And every time, the ink looks a little fresher, like someone's still writing it. It's 11:57 p.m. now. I'm sitting at my desk, typing this while I still can. Outside, the fog's rolling in thicker than usual. I can hear faint church bells in the distance. I live miles from St. Nara's, but the sound is clear, steady, slow. Gong, gong, gong. I just checked the clock again. 12:13 a.m., the same time the bell always rings for the dead. There's a knock at my door. Slow. Even I know who it is. The keeper's come to collect his record. I'm not going to answer. But I can already hear the shovel scraping outside.